All right, hey everybody, it's Mel, and I am broadcasting to you from house arrest. It is shelter in place day number 100,000 today, and I am losing my mind. So I'm actually going to teach you how to do one of my hobbies that I use to pass the time. So I'm going to teach you how to knit today. Yay! It's going to be, oh my god, so exciting, folks, okay? So just real quick, I need to apologize for the video quality because I cannot get the lighting in here correct to save my life. That and my webcam really suck a whole lot, okay? So let's get straight to the effing point, shall we? So step number one is called casting on, and that is how you get the yarn onto the needle, because it doesn't just like magically get there, unfortunately. Okay, so what you want to do, whoops, I got it backwards, it's pretty easy, is you want to drape the yarn over your thumb, and the loose tail right there needs to be the one that's over your thumb, okay? And then the yarn that is attached to your spool needs to go over your middle finger or your index finger or whatever finger you want to use. I'm going to use my index finger because that's the way I was raised. And you want to also make sure that this tail is long because you are going to be using both of these strands to get the yarn onto the needle or to cast on. So if it's super duper short, you're going to run out of yarn really quickly. So make sure that it's long, okay? So let us begin. So you've got your yarn draped over your fingers, right? Loose end is hanging off of your thumb, and then spool yarn is hanging off of your index finger. So you got it like that, right? And so then I just kind of hold it like that to make my life easier. And you just get your needle under the yarn just like that, and you pull it straight down until you've got kind of like a little triangle, okay? And then from there, you then take the needle and you stick it underneath, right? So kind of just to make sure you're doing it right. If the needle is making contact with your thumb, you're doing it the right way, okay? So just kind of get in there, go underneath, just like that, okay? Then you should have this yarn right here that's kind of going over your index finger or your middle finger, whichever one you're using. You want to take that needle and just put it right underneath it. And then after that, you should have like a little triangle underneath your thumb. You take that needle and just stick it through that triangle, okay? And then slip it off the needle, tighten it, shazam. That's how you do it. So let's do it again, just for clarity. So once again, you've got the loose tail yarn hanging off of your thumb, and the rest of the yarn is hanging over some other finger, right? You're going to, again, form that little triangle, and you are going to stick your needle right underneath it, just like so. You are going to have the yarn that is hanging over your index finger, and you're just going to go to whoop, send it right under, and then you are once again going to send that needle right through that triangle beneath your thumb. One more time with feeling, because knitting gets like super duper repetitive. So let's do it. Repetition is going to be your BFF. So right underneath, right? Then we have that yarn that's hanging over your index finger. Put it right underneath, and then stick it through the loop. Okay, let's try this again from a different angle. Underneath, wrap it through, and then, whoops, and then that little loop, that's triangle that's underneath your thumb, stick it right through, slip it off the needle. So one thing is when you're doing that, you don't want to cast on too tight, because when you start your knitting, you're going to start sticking your needles through these loops, and if they're too tight, you're not going to have a good time. So now that I've cast on a few stitches, let me just cast on some more, and then we will move right on, all right? So, all right, so you've got however many stitches that you've cast on your needle, okay? Pointy going to the right, the yarn's going to be hanging to your right. This loose tail right here, you can just go ahead and ignore it. You can weave it in, you can cut it off. I'm just going to ignore it right now because if I focus on it, it's just going to ruin my life. So here's what you do. You're starting your new row doing the knit stitch. That's literally the name of it. There's a million stitches, and this one is called The most basic one is just straight up called the knit stitch. Okay, so get out of the freaking way. You want to have now your needles facing the same direction, and you're going to work it underneath that somehow, okay? Don't go this way, because then that's called a purl stitch, which is great, but not what we're doing. So you want to stick it in there, right? So now you've got both needles are in between this loop. So the way that you want to position your needle now is to have it in the back, all right? So once you've snuck that needle into that loop, however you snuck it in there, whatever trickery you use is fine, but make sure the ultimate position is going to be in the back, all right? So what you want to do after that, and you can yank on the string if you want to tighten it a little bit. So what you want to do now is you want to take the string, again, the one that's attached to your spool, not the stupid tail, okay? Okay. And you want to wrap it around the needle that's in the back just one time, and you want to do it counterclockwise. So this little loop right here, you want to keep this one in your thoughts and prayers at all times, because this bit of yarn right here is going to be what creates your stitch. Because what you're going to end up doing, okay, see that string right there? So just kind of keep pressure on it. See the string right? Whoops. Let's get my life together. All right. Counterclockwise, right? So we're keeping our eyes on this little bad boy right there. So what we're going to end up doing is we're going to take that string that's wrapped around the needle right now, and we're just going to take the needle, down, and with that string's going to be wrapped around it, and we're going to pull it straight to the front, okay? So let's actually do it. Let's actually do it now. Okay, so needle's in there, right? We're pulling it to the back because those are the rules, right? And then we are counterclockwise. Whoops. So we're going to take our yarn. Remember the yarn that's attached to our spool, not the stupid little tail, right? And we're going to wrap it around the needle one time counterclockwise. All right? Now, eyes on the prize. Eyes on the prize. Eyes on that little loop. Because now we're going to take that and we're going to see that yarn right there? That one right there? That's the one that we just wrapped around. And we're going to pull it straight to the front. And that's your first stitch. That is your very first knit stitch. So you will notice there is now another stitch first to your right. You're done with it. You just want to slip it off your needle. Just take it off. All right? Just take it right off the needle. Sorry, my hands are in the way. All right, that's the stitch. I'm kind of doing this backwards. Whoops, stupid gravity. Luckily for me, that loop was so big I could just stick it right back in there. All right. And then you just take it right off the needle. That's it. All right. Let's do it again, and then I'll show you from a different angle. That probably makes more sense. I just want it to be really clear, like what's going on and what's happening to that yarn. Okay? So once again, you are sticking that yarn through the loop, okay? And then you're positioning it in the back, right? And then you are taking your yarn, you're wrapping it around counterclockwise, okay? Counterclockwise, and we're keeping it on the needle. Apply pressure is the way that I do it. I apply pressure when I'm pulling it back, and you can kind of see right there, that's the yarn I wrapped around. And you pull it through, and you pull it through, and it goes straight to the front, okay? Let's do it one more time. And then again, you take the last stitch, the one all the way to your right, and you just take it off the needle. Sorry, I'm trying to do it backwards and work against gravity here. It's not having a good time. It's much easier when I'm not doing it backwards. All right. One more time, and then we're going to show you from a different angle, okay? So again, that's you, right? You are going underneath that needle. Now you've got one in the back, and then not the tail, the real one. Wrapping it around, and you can see that little loop right there. That's what you just wrapped around. And then you see it. You pull it. Whoops. Pull it straight through. All right. And then once again, that last loop, or that last loop on your needle comes right off. All right, there you go. So that's what you do over and over and over again. I'm going to show you from a different angle that's going to look more like what you see in just a second. So here's how it's going to look from your perspective, okay? Needle in your right hand. So you want to take it again underneath that loop, right? And you want to make sure that you're sticking it this way and not like that, okay? So you want to stick it in that way, wrapping it around counterclockwise, and then that loop right there that you've just created is now going to come underneath that yarn, and it's going to come straight to the front and create its own loop. And that last loop right there, it's going to be to your right now, it's dead to you, don't need it, slip it off the needle, okay? Again, underneath. I cast on too tight. I told myself not to and I did it, and now I hate my life. Okay, so you do that, and then you pull it through again. That loop once more is being pulled through to the front. That last loop is not a part of your life anymore. And then you just slip it off the needle and you keep going. So that's how you knit. I mean, I hope you get that, because that's the crux of it. You do that again and again and again for the rest of your life, okay? So I'm just going to go ahead and knit to the end of this row now, and then I'll show you how to finish that off. Okay, so now you're basically at the end of your row, right? You're pretty much at the end. So what do? You do what you always do, right? You're down to your last stitch, or second to last stitch, you keep knitting. So when you're down to your very last stitch, you do the same exact thing. You stick your needle underneath the way you always have, you still tighten it up, you still pull it through the hoop, and you slip it off. And your needle might be naked for now, but then you just flip it over, and then you keep going. So you flip it over just like that, and then you keep knitting the way that you did before. So that's it, Shazam. You keep doing that over and over and over again, and yeah, you keep trucking. You keep knitting until you're done making whatever it is that you're making. I know the way that I'm showing you right now is a little bit different from what I showed you earlier, but it's the same concept. You're still wrapping the needle around, or the yarn around the needle, and pulling it through, just a little bit faster. If you practice, the faster way will come naturally to you, okay? So you just keep knitting over and over and over again. You make a new row, end your same row over and over and over again, and then when you're done with that, I will show you how to bind off. And binding off is how you now get your yarn off your needles and finish your project, okay? Okay, so now you're at the end of your project, right? Let's pretend that you were making something instead of 1.5 inches of nothing. Now you want to finish it by binding off. So binding off is actually really easy. So if you're with me so far with the knitting, then the binding off is actually the easy part. So what you want to do is you want to knit 2 stitches, just 2. So you're going to have 2 stitches on your right needle. So now you want to kind of knit with your left hand a little bit, and you want to take the stitch that's furthest to your right, and you want to pull it over the other one. You might need to get your fingernails involved, I know I do, and then you slip it off the needle, and that's it, okay? One more time. So you knit again, so that you have 2 stitches on this needle, and then you take the left needle, or the left needle, and you take the yarn loop furthest to your right, and you pull it, just pull it over the other one, all right? So again, I'm gonna kind of use my fingernail to hold that bad boy down, right? And then you slip that off the needle. One more time, okay? You knit. So you've got 2 stitches, right? And then you take the furthest right one and you just pull it over the other one. And so that's coming off the needle, that one's staying on, okay? So we're holding that one on, and that one's coming off. It's not gonna stay on the needle. All right, so that's it. So you do that until you get all the way to the end. So I'm gonna now bind off to the end of the row now, and then we will tell you how to finish the entire thing. Okay, so now you're pretty much done, right? You're at the end, you've got, whoops, you've got now you're gonna have your final 2 stitches, right? Let's do that. Let's get your final 2 stitches. So now you've got your done. This needle is empty. This one has the yarn on it. You still do the same thing. You take your yarn and you still pull it. Whoopsie. Okay. You still pull it over and you still slip it off the needle. And once you do that, then you are finally done, okay? So that's it. You can take your scissors now, cut that off, pull all that yarn out, tighten that up, and you are all finished. You can take the final loose yarn that you've got, cut it, and you're done. That is how you finish your project, folks. Get it in focus. Whatever, not important. That's how you finish, all right? The end.